everyone. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from whichever part of the world you're joining. So thank you so much for joining our session today. Today, myself and Kevin are doing a two-person boblet kind of session, and today we are going to do our introduction around DP-600 exam, which is the new Fabric Analytics Engineer certification that came out recently. So just a bit of introduction, like today what we are going to cover in the session. So we'll start with why someone should really go for a certification exam, not just DP-600, but any certification. And then we'll dig into why DP-600 certification could be really important for someone. And then once we finish the why section of it, we'll show you like how you can actually prepare for this certification, and then what kind of different resources you can use that will help you in your journey in preparing for this certification. And then in the end, we are going to conclude with some of the exam and study tips that might help you in cracking this exam. Okay, so before we start the presentation, first of all, we want to just mention that some of us have been using Blue Sky from some time. So just as part of giving back to the community, we have got some Blue Sky codes here. So Kevin has kindly pasted them in the chat. These are first come, first serve basis codes. So if you really want to join Blue Sky, then definitely go ahead and use these codes. And you'll find some of the community people, just posting amazing content there. Okay, so this is me, my introduction. So yeah, hello everyone. My name is Pragati Jain. I'm a Microsoft Data Platform MVP. I'm one of the super users at Microsoft Fabric community. So if you guys don't know about this community, definitely go and check it out because this is a place where I learn most of the stuff. So if you're into Fabric and now if you want to learn data engineering, data science, data factory stuff, Power BI stuff, then definitely go to the Fabric community and check it out. Then around my professional experience, I've got nearly 10 plus years of industry experience. And currently I'm working as an analytics manager at Avanade here in London. I'm also one of the organizers along with my co-presenter, Kevin Chant at Data Weekender Conference. So every year we guys go ahead and just do this online free data platform conference, which is available for free for everyone. This year, watch out our socials for announcement for this year. And then apart from that, I also manage Microsoft Fabric UK user group along with Leon Gordon. Just a fun fact about me, I just do a little bit of painting, and when it collaborates or integrates with my techie stuff, I just proudly call myself a techie artist. Then if you guys want to connect with me on the social platform, then I've got my own blogging website. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Fabric community, and I've got my own YouTube channel. I'll be just pasting these socials in the chat. In the meantime, Kevin, can you please, oh, where is Kevin's? Okay, sorry, Kevin, I just skipped your slide, but Kevin, please.
Yeah, and I do have a bit of a request as well for our moderator. Can you please check to make sure that I'm a presenter, because I don't appear to be able to share, which is a bit of an interesting one.
Yes, I will do that right now. I think it was probably because
that's fine. I can work off this slide whilst you're doing that. So whilst we're waiting for Andy to make me present. Oh, he was so quick, everybody, that I didn't even get a chance to ad hoc do this. And you can all very clearly see my screen here because I can see it in Teams. So yeah, my name's Kevin Chant. Make a long story short, dual category Microsoft MVP, Microsoft certified trainer, frequent blogger and sharer of GitHub repositories. I've worked in IT since the days of Windows 95. That's as much as I'm going to say about that. I'm a data engineering manager at Avanade in the Netherlands. However, as you can probably tell from the accent, I'm actually originally from the southwest of the UK. Now, like Pragati, I'm an organizer of the Data Weekender conference. I'm also one of the organizers for the new Dutch Fabric user group that's taking place. And a fun fact about me is that my wedding vehicle is a camper van, to be more precise, the one that you can probably see behind me in Teams. And as for how to find me everywhere else online, I'm going to put that in the chat, and then we can go on to the next part of the session. So there are 4 simple truths as far as the DP-600 exam is concerned. For those of you who read my blog posts now and again, yes, this was the basis for yesterday's post. So it has been named as the replacement for the DP-500 exam. So for those who aren't aware, the DP-500 exam has been announced as being retired now, so it's going to be retired at the end of April, and Microsoft have named the DP-600 as its replacement. However, as somebody asked me earlier on LinkedIn about, it is still worth doing the DP-500 renewal if you're due to do it, especially if you're working with Azure Synapse, because as well as being a primer for the Power BI material covered for the DP-600 exam, it also will help you cover be a refresher basically for Azure Synapse Analytics. So there is exposure to multiple items required for this exam. It doesn't solely focus, for example, on the Power BI workload. It doesn't focus solely on working on lakehouses or data warehouses either. It's a combination of multiple items within Microsoft Fabric. So if you can imagine a nice architecture diagram you may have seen, it is a select number of those workloads. So Power BI professionals must learn other competencies if they wish to take this exam. So, for example, like I just mentioned, you have to have knowledge about working with both lakehouses and data warehouses within Microsoft Fabric, as well as all the different elements of the data factory experience. And to flip it around, those of you who are experienced data engineers or any other kind of data platform related professionals who do not work in the Power BI arena will have to gain deep Power BI knowledge for the exam as well. So basically, it's ensuring that people expand their horizons, so to speak. So why take the DP-600 exam? Well, as I mentioned just now, it helps to formalize your knowledge about certain elements within Microsoft Fabric. It gets you to learn new skills. As I mentioned just now, Power BI professionals have to learn other competencies like working with lakehouses and data warehouses. And the same goes the other way around for the people who already have experience with lakehouses and data warehouses in the past. It helps fill in knowledge gaps. So, for example, if you've been working with Power BI for a while, but you've not had much exposure to working with deployment pipelines, you can do so when you're studying for this exam, because in Microsoft Fabric, you can work with deployment pipelines regardless of the capacity that you use, as long as it's a Fabric capacity. And I suspect that it will eventually become a requirement for enterprises to be able to work with Microsoft Fabric. As some of you may be aware, for example, some enterprises now say that you can only work with Power BI if you've passed a Power BI Associate exam. So in other words, you can't have a pro license until you pass the PL300 exam. For example, ABN AMRO here in the Netherlands actually took that stance a while ago. That's quite well documented online. And it's one of the many reasons why myself and Pragati have been asked to provide deep DP-600 training internally for our colleagues. And talking about Pragati, it is over to you now.
Thanks, Kevin. I'll just again quickly share my screen, everyone. Okay, so thank you so much, Kevin, for talking about DP-600, like why this should be taken, and just sharing its importance, like how this can really help everyone. So now Kevin has already talked about why DP-600, but now let's talk about this examination, like what this examination is basically about. So very simple introduction to this exam is like, obviously DP-600 is a Fabric Analytics Engineer Associate certification. It's a role-based certification, which is currently available in beta. There are 4 main key areas that are measured as skills within this certification. So you can clearly see plan, implement, and manage a solution for data analytics covers 10 to 15% of the certification. The majority of the certification covers preparing and serving data, which is 40 to 45%, and it is more around how to ingest your data within Fabric environment. It could be lakehouses, warehouses, using different approaches like data flows, notebooks, your data pipelines. And then the other part of the exam covers implementing and managing semantic models, which is 20 to 25%, and the remaining is covered by exploring and analyzing data. So you have to be good in these 4 areas to crack this examination. Now, once it comes to, sorry guys, just one second. Yeah, okay. Now, after we have seen the introduction to the examination, again, this is a role-based certification, as I said. And it just requires your subject matter expertise within these 3 key areas, which is designing your analytical solutions, creating these analytical solutions, and deploying these analytical solutions at enterprise level. So if you are expert in these 3 areas, then you will have pretty good knowledge around the content that is covered within the certification exam. And then another benefit could be, for example, if you have worked with certain roles or, some team members within your team who are working within these roles like solution architects, data engineers, data scientists, AI engineers, DB admins, or Power BI analysts, then it will be beneficial for you to crack this exam as well. Or maybe if you are working in any of these roles, then it could just help you integrate your skills with other areas and prepare for this examination. Now, recommended certification path for strong foundation. Now, definitely you can have expertise around it, but this is something we think could help you. So for example, if you have done like a data platform fundamental certification like DP-900, which is, say, skilled up by a Power BI analyst certification, and then preparing for DP-600 could really help, because these previous 2 certifications, if you have already done them, you have enough knowledge to, just add, say, data engineering skills on top of it, and then that will help you to prepare for your DP-600 exam. Kevin, do you want to add more to this slide, please?
Yeah, so for those of you who've already done the DP-900 exam and have looked at Fabric, may have realised that it is a good primer or way to build your foundation basically on some of the knowledge required to work in Fabric. It covers some of the concepts like files, etc. already, or different data types, data sources, etc. As far as the PL300 is concerned, as some of you already know, Microsoft Fabric is based on the Power BI infrastructure. So the PL300 exam is a really good primer before doing the DP-600. And if you do the PL300 exam, for those who have yet to take a look at it, you do cover things like deployment pipelines in this exam as well. So if you really want a really strong foundation, we do recommend doing these 2 exams beforehand. Of course, if you feel comfortable enough to do the DP-600 exam straight away, that is your personal choice. But if you want to have really good foundation, deep learning knowledge, this is one route that you can do. And of course, as well, if you've already done the DP-500 exam, there is a strong chance already that you did the PL300 as well. So naturally, if you've done those already, then you can go to look straight at the DP-600 exam. Now, there is a question that's just appeared in the chat as well before we go any further. Any good pointers to learn Power BI from the basics for beginners? Yes, go through the PL300 exam material. That actually gives you, as well as all the different learning paths, and I'll show you how you can find learning paths for exams in a bit. Microsoft provides labs for you for absolute beginners of Power BI during these learning paths to learn the new concepts. That is the best place, I would say, to start. Of course, other members of the Power BI data platform community may feel differently. You feel free to put your own ideas and thoughts about this in the chat whilst we're talking, but that's my recommended place. Anyway.
Okay, so let's move forward. Okay, so now the next question comes, how to earn this certification? Now, as I already said in the starting, like this exam has been made available from 11 January, which is still in beta. So you can take this exam until it's in beta. The only difference is when you finish a beta exam, you just don't get your score on spot. You have to just wait until this exam goes live. So once you finish your beta exam, you get your scores within, if I'm right, Kevin, it is within 2 weeks once the exam goes live. So your beta scores will be released after the exam goes live. That is the only difference. But you can go ahead and take this exam in beta. Now, while we are talking about this exam in detail, I would like to just take you through the study guide for this examination. So, we have a little bit idea around what this exam actually covers. So I hope everyone can see my browser link. Kevin, if you can just nod that you can see my other screen now. The browser. Okay, cool. So yeah, this is the landing page where you can find information around DP-600. I'll post the links in a minute once I finish this. And here, if you scroll down, it kind of gives you an idea around, okay, what this certification is about, what kind of different fabric components this certification talks about. So like I said, lakehouses, data warehouses, the notebooks, data pipelines, data flows, semantic models, and reporting. And then it also asks an additional experience on, like, say, Git-based source control, exploratory analysis, data modeling, and obviously you need to have some kind of expertise or experience around, say, SQL language, DAX, and PySpark. Now, if we want to see in detail, let's just go into details like what this exam contains. So I'll just click on this DP-600 study guide, and it takes us through the detailed study guide about this certification exam. Okay. So if you just see this main page, we'll be posting links for this as well in a minute. So if you see and scroll down, you can see the detailed skills measured within this exam. Obviously, it starts with different audience profiles, which this exam is suitable for, then different components within the fabric area, which this certification tests you on, and then different additional areas which you should be skilled with as well. Now, the main 4 areas which we already talked about are these 4 sections, out of which preparing and serving data within your fabric environment is the main and major part of the certification. So you should be really skilled with how to get your data in fabric, with all the different ways you can get the data in, and then how you can implement different kinds of permissions or governance or administer or monitor your fabric environment. Now, if I go further down, I can see you can see like there are few things, like, for example, planning a data analytics environment. There are different kind of elements within it. But one main thing what I really want to point here is the admin portal settings within Fabric environment. So if you have got a Fabric trial already enabled, then you should be able to see our admin portal within your environment, but definitely go against all the admin portal settings, because these are one of the important aspects of this certification, and you might expect some question from this. So definitely go ahead and make sure you understand those admin portal settings, like why they should be enabled or disabled. Then obviously working with gateways and customizing your Power BI report theme, that's fine. And then when it comes to implementing and managing data analytics environment, you need to understand the item level access controls for the Fabric items as well, like whether you can give different accesses on a lake house or a warehouse, or just to your, say, semantic model. Then how you can work with shared workspaces for using warehouses and lake houses. Then you can also you need to understand and manage Fabric capacities as well. Then when it comes to analytics development lifecycle, there are a few things here. Like, for example, how you can implement version control within a workspace. Then there's something called Power BI desktop project files. So one thing I want to point here is within this study guide, they have mentioned so many things. But if you go to the learn parts for this exam, these learn parts are actually missing few things from the study guide. And I know Kevin is going to point out few things in the coming slides soon. So definitely when you're going through these learn parts for the certification, don't just think these learn parts are enough for you, because when you compare these learn parts from the study guide, there are many things missing. Like, for example, there is not a learn path on Power BI desktop project file. So you might have to literally go and search things on, say, Microsoft documentation and learn about it. Then, for example, there's another thing like creating environments within Fabric. There is no learn path on it. It's a preview feature, but there is not a proper set of path there. So you might have to go and search about it and know about it. So make sure whenever you're preparing for this exam, you double check this study guide that you're covering all the topics. Then obviously preparing and serving data. So you should be skilled with how to get data into a lakehouse warehouse. You should know about shortcuts. Then you should understand how views and functions and stored procedures can be created, how you can enrich the data by adding columns and tables within your lakehouses and warehouses, how you can copy your data, schedule data pipelines, and schedule data flows and notebooks. So these are the kind of things they expect you to know. And then obviously there are a few more things around like slowly changing dimensions and then denormalizing data. You should be good with, understanding aggregations, deaggregations, merging and joining data. So all kind of different transformations that you can think about on your data or, cleaning the data. So you should know how they should be done, say using SQL or PySpark. And then optimizing performance is one of the key section for this certification. So you should be skilled with like how you can actually optimize performance, especially when you're working with data flows, notebooks, and SQL queries within Fabric environment. And then when it comes to implementing and managing semantic models, then this is more on the Power BI focused side of things. So for example, if you already come from the Power BI background like myself, then you should be already, well versed with these kind of skills. So for example, Microsoft Fabric just introduced a new storage mode like direct lake. So you should know what that direct lake mode is, how that can be beneficial. Can there be scenarios when this direct lake cannot work? So you should know and understand like how these storage modes will work. Then working with external tools like DAX Studio and Tabular Editor, especially for optimizing your semantic models within Power BI, how that can work. Then, taking up a star schema approach, pros and cons, how that will work. And then obviously concepts like, bringing in bridge tables, then pros and cons of many-to-many relationships. Then you should also know about DAX coding within Power BI. So in Power BI, we use DAX and M code, right? So both of them are major part of it. So make sure you understand DAX calculations, how those window functions work, how table filtering and variables and iterators work in DAX. And then also it comes to like calculation groups, field parameters. You should also understand about large data set format, which is in Fabric environment, like how that can be helpful as well for designing your enterprise level solutions. Then concepts like row level security, object level security, composite models, including aggregations. So these are some of the key aspects that you should be focusing on. And obviously optimizing your enterprise scale semantic models using external tools like DAX Studio and Tabular Editor. And then the last section of the certification covers more around the exploring and analyzing of data, which you can see like how you can use different ways to do this in Fabric environment. So obviously there are a few of the study materials that we have already got here, but I think, Kevin, you will be taking further from here. So over to you.
Thank you very much. Sharing. Let me just get the screen back a minute.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing.
That's fine. And now I'm just going to do a mass sharing of the list for everybody, but no need to panic. So, yeah. So some general Microsoft exam study tips for everybody, first of all, and these can apply at times to other certifications as well, like the GitHub ones. So, first of all, go through the recommended material on the exam page. So, for example, I will take you over to here. Not the DP-600 exam. I wanted to just quickly show this to highlight the fact you do get told now that it's going to be retired along with the certification. Just wanted to quickly show that here because it was easier for continuity. So, for example, if you go to the actual DP-600 exam page, which I shared earlier and Pragati has shared again for everybody, just to remind you all, scroll down towards the bottom, you have a 2 ways to prepare section in here. You will see that you get recommended learning paths. What I can do here is open up in a new tab. Now, if I go over to that new tab, you will see, it's a complete learning path. Now, one thing to be aware of is that some of these learning paths are new, especially for Microsoft Fabric. Some of them, if I scroll further down, are actually originally from the Power BI material. So if we go back now over to my list of recommended tips, as you can see, point number 2 says clearly, if the material says it's completed from the past, go over and do it again. So basically, if those of you who go onto the recommended material see the sign that says completed, like you can see here, because you've completed it, for example, while studying for a Power BI exam, my advice is to go back through and do it again anyway, because you need to make sure that you have the knowledge from these when you go to do the exam. So next one is to compare the recommended material, the recommended Microsoft Learn material, with what's in the study guide to research missing items, or items that have been briefly touched upon. So a really good example, and Pragati did steal my thunder a bit earlier, is the Power BI project. So if you go through the learning material here, for example, the analytics development lifecycle, which admittedly is a topic close to my heart, it does not cover at this moment in time Power BI projects, which, as you are probably aware, is similar to database projects where you can actually now save your Power BI reports as, I say code, as metadata, as the official term for it is. And what I can actually do, I will put a link directly in about it here. I have done a couple of posts relating to Power BI projects, but I won't go into that for this session. So as you can see here, when you go through the material for the analytics development lifecycle, it does cover some of the elements that are mentioned in the study guide. However, there are a few blank spots, like a couple of the assets that are mentioned. So make sure you're on top of those as well. And in fact, the other day I did a post about some of these items as well. So, and as you can see here, there is a whole module, as I mentioned, relating to deployment pipelines. Again, this is why the PL300 was a good primer, because it covered this. I'm getting lots of thumbs. I'm getting thumbs up, I see, or somebody is. So anyway, back over to here. Oh, sorry, what I should have done, and something I didn't quite fully do. So back to what I mentioned earlier. So go through all of this recommended learn material, and then go through the actual 600 study guide, scroll through, and just go through this list and think to yourself, did this actually get covered or not? Do I have to go, for example, to my favorite search engine to put that term in to find a link for it? And I do share some resources that are kind of linked to where you can find some of this material shortly. So you do have to do a comparison and go through, after you've gone through the learn material, go through the study guide and think to yourself, sort of what's absent or what was only briefly covered that I need to find out more information about. Because even though the learn material is good, there are some areas where you need to do a bit of research yourself. So next point is quite an interesting one for Microsoft exams in general. Make the most of the practice tests if they are available. So at this moment, for example, at this moment in time, the practice test, the official practice test, is not available for the DP-600 exam. However, the official vendor for the exam is MeasureUp, and I thought I had a link for them here. At least I did have it prepared earlier. So is that because I put them in another tab? So MeasureUp are the official provider for the exams. And it's not here now, so I'll have to just explain to you all verbally about this. So basically, if you go to book a Microsoft exam, it will offer you an offer for the practice exam. Please, beforehand, and Pragati, can you put a link for MeasureUp in the chat for me? Please, if you're going to do this, go to MeasureUp first and check there is actually a practice exam available for that exam. I have heard allegedly that somebody got caught out by this before with the DP-600 exam. So please check if the practice exams are available before you go to buy them when you book your exam. Now, finally, the next one relating to generally Microsoft exams, and again for some other offenders as well, decide the best location for you. Now, traditionally, years ago, when you first, especially when I first started doing certification exams, because my earlier certification is now legally allowed to drink in Europe. People traditionally went to the test centers to do the exams. However, they then made online exam taking available. And as we all know, during lockdown, this was the main option if you wanted to gain a certification. So that's why the demand for taking exams online has increased. And it is good to do it from the luxury of your home if you want to. You get the flexibility of being able to do it at different times now instead of having to depend on the opening hours of the test center. So it's quite good. There are quite a few rules involved which you need to be aware of. Of course, the same applies to taking exams in a test center as well. So if you're doing it at home, just things like one screen, you can't have any open text in the room, etc., etc. So that's my general tips for you all. Targeted ones, on the other hand, for the DP-600 are to, for example, take advantage of the Fabric trial license. Now, this is good for testing a lot of Fabric resources, especially on a tenant where you've just been using Power BI or you create your own tenant. Now, for doing the DP-600 exam, the reality is that you actually need to know some of the admin settings, and it clearly mentions about having knowledge of where to do things within the admin settings in the study guide. If you are using a tenant in the workplace, you may not have access to the admin portal and to some other settings as well. So you may want to create your own Microsoft Fabric environment. So I've just put a link in the chat for a post I did on how you can actually do that. And this post actually adds a bit more to it as well, because here I show you as well how you can create Azure DevOps in the same environment or using the same tenant to test things like Git integration, and how to use Power BI Purview Compliance Manager as well. If I say Power BI Compliance Manager, I think all of a sudden I've created a new product for everybody. So Purview Compliance Manager, and in fact, what you can also do as well now is go to the new Purview portal, and in there you can view the default Fabric objects that get scanned. So a little bit of a tip for you all there. Carrying on from there on this lovely list, be smart about when to take the exam. The main point I want to get across here is do it when it's comfortable for you. When you're comfortable, you've got all the knowledge. For example, at the moment, the exam is in beta, and a lot of people are keen to take the exam because they have built up that knowledge. So my message is, when you're ready, book the exam. Don't take your time, basically, to make sure you know all the material that you think when you're confident. And also to do with times as well. For example, if you've got certain commitments and maybe you want to take your exam online in the evening instead, or you may be one of those people that thinks, well, actually, I will wait until it becomes GA for one reason or another. So another thing I want to say is to be aware of name changes within Microsoft Fabric. So now and again, there's little things like menu items get changed. So for example, and I can show you this here, if we go into a lake house, and I will make this resolution a bit bigger. If you click here, and if I press F11 to do this, you can see there's an option here called maintenance. In the past, that was called optimize. It's just little quirks like that. Also, bigger quirks, of course, include the fact that what was known as data sets in the past are now known as semantic models. So be aware of that when you're going through the training material for the exam. In addition to that, time permitting, watch the digital launch videos from last year. So when Microsoft Fabric was first announced at Microsoft Build last year, there were 2 digital launch videos released in the same week. So I do highly recommend, if you have the time to watch both of those, I think there's about 7 hours in total. So those of you who are reasonably new to Microsoft Fabric can give yourselves a good foundation just by watching those videos alone. And it's also good for people whose minds work slightly differently. Now, instead of sharing lots of recommended links to recommended resources like those 2, and something else I'm going to cover shortly, I'm just going to say to you, if you go to one of my posts and scroll to the bottom, there is a link for links for recommended resources there, which we're covering in this session. This is why I needed access to the chat for you all. Now, take advantage of online resources. Like I said, there's lots of resources, some of which we're going to cover shortly, and various events. For example, this event, which is like the other one Pragati mentioned earlier, is completely free for everybody to attend, and it's good for people online who find it harder to travel to in-person events than others for one reason or another. So yeah, attend events, soak up the knowledge that people in the community and from Microsoft are willing to share with you. Now, there are some recommended Microsoft resources that can help for this. So, for example, there is the Microsoft Learn material that we've already talked about. And if you go to, and hopefully Pragati will put the link in the chat for me if I ask nicely, I think it's aka.ms/MS Fabric. That will take you to all of the Microsoft Fabric material that's available in Microsoft Learn. There is the official Microsoft Fabric certification as well, which I don't seem to have the link for to hand, which I think Pragati can put the link in there. In fact, I did actually bring it up earlier. I can just go over to my other tab here and quickly go over to, I just copy and paste this for you all. I think like a bit of live copying for everybody here. That's one of my favorite starting points for people. What is Microsoft Fabric? And you can just navigate from there if needed. So going back over again, I'm seeing lots of comments in the chat. So I'm hoping that the digital launch videos, as I've already mentioned, and the official practice tests, which have yet to appear. Additional resources include the DP-600 exam post from Nicola, where he leverages his Power BI background to share a lot of DP-600 knowledge with the community. In addition to that, I have some Fabric posts, as some of you may have gathered already from today, and I do apologize for them to put in the text, but it's just for context. And of course, Andy has, and I will share this post with you because it is quite good. So our host stroke moderator for today also has quite good posts on this. But if you scroll through to Andy's post, he actually shares links to certain parts of the study guide. Now, if you remember my point from earlier, where you have to go through the study guide and make a judgment call if it's items that have not been fully covered in the Microsoft Learn material, Andy actually has links to a lot of those here in his post. And I can actually put links to those 3 particular items here. And I did want to share that one because Andy's one is quite good on that front. I will look at the questions in the chat shortly. And there's multiple videos online. So if you go to online, you will find multiple videos there. Now, somebody has got their hand up. I'm not sure if they can take themselves off mic or whether they'd rather ask in the chat instead the question, because I've noticed we've got 2 minutes left. Can you put your question in the chat instead, please, if that's okay? Because we are on a bit of a time frame here. And over to you, Pragati, I do believe.
Maybe you can just keep sharing your screen, Kevin, because I guess it's just one slide now. So yeah, I think everyone, this is what we really wanted to share today. And in the end, just summarizing what we had in our session today is like, obviously this exam has got a lot of breadth, so much into it. You need to know data engineering concepts. You need to know so much about Power BI. You need to know a lot of things going on about lake houses, warehouses. You need to understand different languages like PySpark, T-SQL, even DAX and M code. But still take your time to prepare for it. But one of the good thing, what really motivates me to learn about DP-600 for DP-600 certification is I can actually expand my skills now. So just coming out of my Power BI comfort zone, I can now learn something new, like for example, PySpark within the data engineering science. So take it as a good learning because it could be a good skill upgrade as well for you if you're coming from a different background like myself. So take it as a motivation and then maybe you can prepare for this exam and crack it. And then as Kevin shared that there are so many resources already available online, but and there are people out there writing blogs like Andy, Kevin, and Nicola who we can really go and look for the right content these guys are creating for the DP600. So just go and look around because there are people doing a lot of good stuff around the DP600 content. And then, yeah, definitely enjoy your learning journey. I mean, if you have any questions or anything, you can always reach out to us. Kevin, can you go to the next slide, please?
Yeah, sure. I was just typing something in the chat room in response to something.
And yeah, I mean, thank you all fabricators for joining us for this session. And if you guys have got any questions, you can post it in the chat and me and Kevin will be there for a few more minutes after the session. In case you have questions, then we'll be available for you to answer them. Thank you.